Again, my name is Bill Arnold, and I serve as our Senior Director of Alumni and Family Engagement. We're pleased to have you with us this evening for this What to Expect as a Parent of an Alma College Student session. This evening, we're going to talk about a couple of things, and Amanda Zielinski, our Vice President for Enrollment and Special Assistant to the President, is going to give us an update on our continued COVID-19 response and what our plans are for this fall. And Dr. Phil Andre, Director of our Academic Support Services and member of our Integrated Physiology and Health Science faculty, is going to talk a little bit about how to help set expectations for academic performance in the first year and really setting realistic expectations for the first year. And then Cassie Tennant, who's our Controller and Director of Financial Services, will share a bit about our upcoming billing cycle, which is probably on the front of some of your minds, and can expect on how what's coming and how to take care of that billing process. And then we'll share some calendar dates for Tartan 101, which is our orientation program. Also want to recognize that we've got several of our parent and family board members on as volunteers to kind of give a firsthand perspective as well. So want to welcome and let you know that Barry and Sue Fitzpatrick, who are from Onaway, Michigan, and who as of this spring are now parents of 2 Alma College alumni, Brianna, class of 2019, Ryan, class of 2021, as well as a current student, Caitlin, who's a class of 23. Shirley Reese, who's from DeWitt, Michigan, and parent of Danielle Reese, who is going to be a sophomore this year, and then Michelle Briegel from Livonia, whose son Benjamin will be graduating in this next year. So we've got some parent experts here who can give you some perspective and answer questions that you might have. So glad to have them with us. And with that, I'm going to ask Amanda to take it and kind of address the COVID-19 and kind of fall plans, because I know that's probably top of mind for most folks. We want to kind of get that out in front and address those points at this point with updates. So Amanda, you want to give an update on that?
Sure can. Thanks, Bill. I think that many of you and I have talked before. I always joke that I'm a person you may have never met, but I promise you have mail in your house from me. So I promised you that my name is somewhere in your house right now. So I oversee admissions for the college, and then I also oversee President's Office operations and communications, and I serve on the COVID-19 response team. We have been continuously evaluating the pandemic since last year, as many colleges have. We are now starting our fall planning. We have never stopped monitoring the situation and making plans for the next semester as it approaches. However, in the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of changes in terms of CDC recommendations, statewide recommendations, and some other changes in terms of some of the variants of COVID-19, and then some of the recommendations from the Center for Disease Control. We were very lucky last year that we were able to stay in-person classwork the entire year. So with limited interruptions, we did have a number of cases on campus, but we had no hospitalizations. We had no major complications from COVID. And part of that is because our campus community was so wonderful at following our community guidelines around keeping our entire campus safe. Our students, faculty, and staff were amazing. And if you ask anyone who saw or interacted with our campus over the last 18 months, they will say that. The governor even mentioned, recognized us for how great we're doing. And we just were a fantastic example of how a community can come together to keep each other safe and to make sure that we are also protecting the most vulnerable in our population and in our community. We are continuing that plan in the fall. So there are definitely some changes that we are seeing and foreseeing. There will be communication from the president's office coming out next week that will talk a little bit more about some of these pieces. We intend to start and lead the fall term with limited restrictions around COVID-19. There are a couple of pieces that will be still COVID response related that I'll talk about in a second, but generally it'll feel and look very much like a standard academic term and semester and then the year. That is all barring whatever is to come. So we will 100% continue to monitor the situation and adjust as needed. We will complete what's called phasing. So phase 1 will be limited to no restrictions. And then if we see a rise in cases on campus, or there's something going on in the state or the community that we need to respond to, then we may say add layers around social distancing or gatherings by size, whatever it may be. So we will actually phase in the opposite direction as we did last year. So last year we started restrictive, and then we removed restrictions as we continue to get through the year without many complications. And then this time we will actually start with very few restrictions and then go from there. We are currently highly encouraging all students to be vaccinated for a couple of reasons. It is not currently a requirement for our campus. And what we are doing in terms of encouraging is for a couple of reasons. One is the Center for Disease Control does not necessitate quarantine or isolation for someone exposed to COVID-19 if they've been vaccinated. We had a large number of students who had to do quarantine or isolation that last year, and that is challenging for them socially, academically, and just on campus generally. And so students who are vaccinated do not need to have that be a part of their experience on campus. And so that's one of the pieces that we are really encouraging them to do so that they don't have that piece as something that they need to worry about during the academic year. The other piece is that we are a large portion of the community in the city of Alma. And so there is very much a mentality about us protecting our own community and protecting those who are most vulnerable within our community. And so we see it also as a way for us to protect those who need it most. And so we are very much encouraging students to be vaccinated. Students will have 2 additional options though. So a student can waive even if a vaccine is ever required for the campus, like we require the meningitis vaccine, for example. There is a waiver for students that can be completed for any religious, medical, or personal reason. So no matter what, that's a pathway for students as they're going through any vaccination process on our campus. The other piece, if a student is not vaccinated, they will go through COVID-19 testing. So that is standard best practice. So they will be tested weekly throughout the academic year. So they will have that piece as they're coming to campus without that vaccination. So students may not want to be tested for COVID-19 on a regular basis. And so if they are vaccinated, we do not need to do that. That is not considered necessary for vaccinated individuals. Our overall approach to next year is to try to have it feel as much like a standard Alma semester as possible. So currently we are face covering free on campus. Currently the CDC is still recommending it for classroom experiences, but we don't believe that's going to stay through the fall. So we will see how that looks in the fall. But generally we are anticipating that those will no longer be necessary on campus, just as they are not currently. And then we also anticipate having our standard class sizes and having all of our classes in person throughout the entire year like we had last year as well. I think in talking through that, I answered the questions that came in advance, but Katie or Bill, was there anything that I missed in terms of advanced questions that came in?
I think you covered everything, Amanda. If you have other questions, if there's something that Amanda didn't cover, which I don't know how that wouldn't be, you're pretty thorough.
I'm very thorough as an individual.
Yeah, so please feel free to enter that in the chat, and we can make sure to get back to it, and we can respond either in text or have Amanda jump back on. But why don't we shift at this point, and Phil, you want to spend a little bit of time talking about, again, this notion of setting expectations around academic performance. This is something that we see happen, right? And students come in with differing experiences from high school and other spaces, and sometimes can find it challenging and maybe set a little bit unrealistic expectations for themselves around academic performance, involvement, those types of things. So how about just giving us some insight, and then perfect opportunity to have some of our current parents share their experience with their students. So Phil?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. Hi, everybody. My name is Phil Andre. I'm the Director of Student Success. I'm also a lecturer in integrative physiology and health science. And I'm going into my 15th year at Alma, so I've been here for some time. One of the big questions that we see is, what are, college courses going to be like? What should I be doing? And like Bill said, oftentimes you might set expectations like I want to hit a 4.0 or I want to get all A's, or we hear these things because, a lot of folks were certainly high achievers, and that's great. We need to have, expectations, but we also need to be realistic. And I think it's also important to recognize practice over the outcome, right? What are the things that we're doing each and every day to be our best and to learn and to get the most out of these classes? So I just got muted there. Can you all hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you. One of the things I really like to reinforce is setting a schedule. Make studying another class in and of itself. Okay. Have that expectation that after dinner each night, you're going to go, your student is going to go into a classroom, into a study room, at a carrel, someplace away from their room where they can now associate their dorm room with being more relaxation, being able to unwind, and they can go somewhere and study. and just make it part of that routine. Actively taking notes in class, rewriting those notes after you've been at class and have used your readings from the night before, bringing those together. Dare I say it, raising your hand, asking a question, engaging in the conversation. As professors, we love this. I don't just want to sit there and talk to myself for an hour, and I can guarantee you my students don't want that either. So challenge your student to really take part and ask questions and answer questions that are being, brought forth in that discussion. You get a lot more out of the class, you enhance understandings, and it's a way to keep things interesting as well. And I think you get a lot more out of it just by engaging with the professor, with your peers, in that classroom setting. The other thing that we have is office hours. And I know, we've all heard of this and gone to these in our own college experiences and such, but sometimes it can be intimidating to walk into your professor's office and take advantage of that. We want to see our students. We want to see them outside the classroom, in the classroom, sporting events, musical performances, and office hours are a big part of that. It helps us get to know the student on a one-on-one level, but answer any questions and maybe learn some ways that, or learn of areas that we maybe were not as clear on as we were lecturing and bringing forth these group projects. And any chance that we can get to enhance that understanding, create that relationship. I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's one of the main reasons why we all work here. So any ability that we're going to be able to have, any opportunity, we really want to take advantage of that. So challenge your student to go to office hours once a week, especially early on, and meet with their professors just to get to know them, even if they feel as though they're doing pretty well, just to get to know them and work through that process. In terms of expectations, at midterms and at the end of the semester, they may have a GPA that's lower than what they were originally used to. Okay. Part of coming into a college setting is going to be a little bit of that learning curve where you're learning what skill sets and study habits work. What are other ones that you maybe need to include and adopt? And what are some new things that you need to work on so that we can get there? So if your student was a really high flyer, if your student was more middle of the road, that's okay. But I think learning these practices and getting these into a routine is really what helps translate over into academic success. It's been the number one thing I feel I have seen is that active engagement, really being an active note taker, an active participant, but asking questions and keeping a schedule for yourself. It's great to have time after dinner from 7 to 11 and you can watch a ball game or play video games and hang out with your friends. But at the same time, it's also an amazingly great time to get work done and stay ahead of the game. So those are the best pieces of advice that I can give. Are there any questions that folks might have on that?
So yeah, feel free to enter a question if you have one or just another topic related to that. And I'm going to ask our current parents to maybe share, if you would, the experience and how maybe your students transition, maybe a new strategy that they picked up, or even if you're willing to share a struggle and how they transitioned through that. So Michelle or Shirley or Barry and Sue, would one of you like to maybe start and offer a perspective from your experience?
I can share. First of all, professionally, I'm an elementary school principal. And so it's really important for people that their kids are leaving high school and coming to college to remember what we've just gone through in the last year. And all students, regardless of the age, are going to be hitting major obstacles. And so as educators, we're working really hard. I was in a webinar today about trauma and how kids have experienced this COVID experience very differently. So having that mindset, thinking about a new student entering Alma, how can they be successful? I think exactly what Phil said is the grades that you may have seen, they may go one way or the other. I mean, if your child was all virtual and really didn't do work and grades were kind of just given to them, they may really find a struggle of being back in person. Or you may see, like for my own child, virtual is really hard for him. And so I was very thankful that he was able to be on campus last year and be in class. He learns much better face to face. And I feel like for my child is held a little more accountable for his learning when he is physically in front of a professor. So I just think having those conversations and really realizing what they've been through and how that's going to affect them and all kids as we enter hopefully a new good normal. I love to hear, Amanda, what you were saying. So thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Shirley or Barry and Sue?
I can just tag on with what we've heard, that finding a routine was key for my freshman last year, to just find what was going to work in this brand new environment, that she didn't have her old set of routines. She had to define new ones. So that was not difficult for her. She found it very welcoming at Alma, and it was amazing that her professors were just, they were there for her. She tends to get very anxious very quickly, and her professors were there and they talked her off the ledge, and they supported her, and she was just so thankful for that. And so was Mom, who was like, are you advocating for yourself? Are you communicating? She's like, yeah, the professors get back to me right away. So that was just a wonderful thing that that Alma provided.
Good, thanks, Shirley.
Bill?
Yeah.
Sorry we were late. We almost forgot about you.
Not on purpose.
But anyways, the only thing I would add is that prior to COVID, even when our kids all went to, they were all really good students in high school, and it was kind of a culture shock or a adjustment for them moving to college. It was definitely, they didn't struggle, but I mean, it was definitely harder than what they had in high school, even before COVID.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the point, Phil, you were making, is that, although some students are come in with a number of AP courses or other advanced courses, so some of them are more prepared, but some of them may not have those experience. It is now a step up, right? Everybody is sort of at that next level, and so sometimes in high school, the curriculum it has to be instructed at a level where you're keeping everyone at the same pace, right? And then now you're sort of taking the top of that mix, and that's where the bar is. And so things move at a little faster pace often. More content is covered. There's more expectation for independent work, sort of keeping up. You're not always everything isn't going to be covered in the lecture, and the expectation is there's some independent work that you're going to have to keep up with, I know, as part of that as well.
I would just follow up by saying, tell them this: they were accepted at Alma College. They can do this, right? And we have so many support systems in place to work with your students, and we love doing that. This is part of why we're here, is to help people realize their potential, exceed what was their own expectations, and just really get the most out of their experience. And we really, really enjoy doing that and working with your students. So whenever there's a question, just all they have to do is ask, and we are right there.
Phil, I will just throw it out because I've heard you say this before. I think it's really a useful thing to put out, and hopefully, I know we tell our students, but to reinforce with parents, is when you talk about support services and our tutoring services and those things, is actually, that's not, often students tend to think of that, well, that's for people who are struggling in a class. And actually, some of our most successful students are the ones who are using the tutoring services and the writing center and getting the reviews on their assignments. It's not because I'm struggling in a class.
Right.
It's actually, I'm just trying to do my best work. And so that, I think, is something that maybe seems counterintuitive to students.
Yeah, it's feedback. It's another way that we learn, and it's hearing, when you think about work with a tutor, it's discussing this material and learning the material from another perspective, from another individual. And even though that individual might, have already had, they obviously already had the class with that professor and they've worked with the professor, they're still different people. So there's going to be little tips and little, different perceptions that are going to be a little bit different. And it takes all of those sometimes to help make it click and to really enhance that understanding. And we all use it.
Okay.
So there are a couple questions about international exchange students in the chat. Do you mind if I tackle those before we move on to our next?
Sure. Sure thing.
Yep. So Maria, for your questions around exchange students, so a couple of pieces. One is we do a separate orientation for all of our international students. So they will receive communication from Danny Rossman about that orientation, but they get an extra day where we kind of talk through some things very specific to them. Like they have specific work requirements and check-in requirements and things of that nature based on their visa status. So that will actually be coming up for orientation for them. And Amir Alsaba will help with the arrangements for travel. And then Danny will run that orientation. So that is all coming, and we do help with students no matter what year they are in Alma as they're coming in. So we also do the same thing for transfer students in addition to first year students. So we have an international orientation, a transfer orientation, and a first year orientation. And there are things that overlap and combine with them. And Katie Urchuk's going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then in terms of out of state or international students flying to and from the airport, we do offer shuttle services. I did try to check right before to see if I could get that listing of dates, and I don't think it's up yet, but we do post those dates, and then students are able to take that shuttle service to and from the airport. It's usually just the Detroit airport, but occasionally they do a stop in the Lansing airport as well, because it's kind of on the way. The other thing that is possible is we do have a bus service that picks up from Alma that you can get to the airport. It just is a little bit longer of a process, and so students usually prefer the shuttle. So those dates are shared, and then students will be able to do that. And then they are able to stay in their residence hall room without leaving until the shuttle takes them to the airport. So all those things are possible and things that we offer as support for students.
I think just a part of that to follow up is part of your question, Maria, was about the December 10th. And some of that it will depend on what the exam schedule is for your student. They very well may have an exam right up until the 10th, and so not be able to leave. But that's really unknown until they get their class schedule and when their exam is scheduled in terms of when their actual departure date would be scheduled.
So can I ask because my daughter's trying to book flights, and so would it be best if she booked a flight for the returning to Scotland on the 11th of December then, to be on the safe side?
If you would like her, go ahead and she's been working with Amir Alsaba. Go ahead and have her reach out to Amir, and he'll help with the travel arrangements. So that's probably the best bet, because he'll find out the shuttle start times for her and help her with those arrangements. So, and I know that they've been communicating.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions related to kind of expectations, that academic transition, those types of things before we shift gears a little bit? Okay, and if something comes up, feel free to post it and we can absolutely come back to it. I want to shift and ask Cassie Tennant to just talk a little bit about our upcoming billing cycle and again, remind folks about what their sort of payment options are and how they can approach that. So Cassie, you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Welcome, everyone. Excited to get the new year started. We are working very hard and getting things ready and situated, and excited to welcome all of the incoming students this fall. Billing is coming. So we've been getting lots of questions from a lot of you. A lot of you have found our financial services at alma.edu email inbox already, and that's great. That is the email address that you will want to have nearby, and emailing questions and that type of thing. That inbox is monitored by the entire financial services office, and we answer questions as quickly as we can as they're coming through. So if any of you have reached out so far, you know that we're getting ready to do the billing. We anticipate having everything released and to the students by the end of July. All students will receive an email communication letting them know that the electronic bill is ready and they can log into self-service and they can view it. First year students, the first semester, yes, we will mail that first paper statement home. We'll work with admissions and get that mailing processed, and so we'll get those out. But while those are coming to you in the mail, you can have your student log into their student portal, click on student finance, and they will have an electronic statement that they can view. They can see all the details there when they first log in, but there's also a link to a PDF statement that they can also download and access. One thing with the students, so as you hopefully have heard by now, the student account information does belong to your student, and they have to give consent for us to share information with you all. If you're calling in and asking questions, we're going to ask for a 4-digit PIN number. We'll ask for an answer to a security question, all of which hopefully your students have completed on the consent for disclosure form that should be in their student portal. Hopefully they've gotten that filled out. You'll want to know the answer to the question that they've selected, and you'll need to know the 4-digit PIN that they've selected. If you call our office and ask questions and want to talk very specific about the statement, we will first ask you those 2 questions so that we make sure that we can do that. Another option for parents, and it's something that we highly recommend, and we do talk to students about it when they're here during the orientation timeframe, is parent portal, or we call parent proxy access. So basically they can give anybody, a guardian of any kind, or even a friend or a sibling who may want to help them kind of navigate the financial pieces of college. They can give access to their account in the portal. And so when they log into their student portal into self-service, they would click on their name, and there is a link there that says Add Edit Proxy Access. And that's how they can set up you all with access to your own parent portal for you to view information. The students can give you access to the financial information. They can give you access to their financial aid package, their award package, and those types of things. When a student does that, you should receive 2 emails. The first email is the link to the parent portal along with your username that will be specific for you. The second email will be your temporary password, and you can log in, and then you'll have access to whatever the student has given you access to. So hopefully they've given you access to more than just make a payment. We want you to review the bill and make sure it's right. We tell the students the same thing. If you want mom and dad to help you pay the bill, give them more than just the make a payment link. They need the information. But they can also give you access to their 1098T tuition statement. So as you're filing your taxes and claiming your son or daughter on their tax return, you can claim that tax benefit as well. So that form is in there for you to view, and they can give you access to that. They can also set up somebody else. So when they click on that Add Edit Proxy link, if they want to give access to somebody that's not showing in the dropdown, so we'll have all the relationships set up in the system. So mom and dad may be there, but maybe they want an aunt or an uncle, somebody who's actually going to help them. Sometimes an older sibling. We've seen that too, where they have older siblings help them out. They can just click Add a Person. And when they add a person, they can put in the person's information. They put in their email and all of that, and it will create a record for that person. And that person will also get the same 2 emails so that they can help them through that process. One thing with the proxies, so if you are set up as a proxy, you should receive all of the same financial emails that your student receives. So if there's something coming from financial services regarding the bill, and it's going to your student, which all of our communication is directly with the student, you as a proxy should also receive those same emails. We have things set up so when the statements are ready, the parents and the proxies, parents, proxies, and students all receive an email. We also have something in place this year that when your student's bill changes, there's going to be an additional email communication that is sent out to the student along with the proxy if there's access. So one of the things that we have found in the past, when bills can change frequently for lots of different reasons, and we're looking for ways to increase that communication. And so we have something in place this year to share all of that with you sooner. And so we can get things addressed a lot quicker for you. So as I mentioned, we anticipate having the bill out electronically by the end of July. And then it is due for fall term, August 27th. We have lots of payment options that you can take advantage of. First and foremost, your financial aid packages would be posted and look, to the bill in the student's account. Make sure the student has accepted their federal aid, their loans, and things like that. So if you're looking at the statement and you see something that says action required, you may need to contact our office to see what needs to happen. If something is pending, it should be okay. But if something is saying, it's not dispersed, it's not pending, there's some sort of action that needs to happen, we need to have the student take some sort of action for that to hit the account. So it's important that they contact our office or the financial aid office to help get that resolved. We do have a payment plan partnership with, was formerly CashNet. It is now Transact. So you may see a change in name if you're familiar with them in the past. It is now Transact, but that allows you to set up a payment plan over the course of the term or the semester. So you can set up a 5-month payment plan per term, or you can set up a 10-month payment plan for the whole year. Essentially, the amount that you see for fall, you would double that, and that would be your payment plan for the full year. So if you're setting up a 10-month payment plan, you want to make sure you're setting that up for the full year. We also have a deferred payment option where you can pay half on the due date, which again is August 27th. And then you pay the second half in the middle of October. So about 7 weeks into the term is when the second payment would be due. We do have a $20 fee associated with that plan, but it's something that we just manage in-house. The student can fill out the form for the deferred payment plan online. They log into their portal. There is an other forms link, and our office has a series of forms in there that they can fill out. And that's how they would sign up for the deferred payment plan option. CashNet, if you're interested in that, you can go to alma.edu/cashnet. And if you have not used them before, you can create an account and set up a payment plan, or your student can do it as well. Highly recommend that you have the student go through the financial process with them. It is part of the transition to college life. But we know that first year can be a little bit overwhelming. And so having mom and dad and others there to kind of help navigate that is also important. But it's important that your student knows, the financial piece of it, the amount of their tuition and where it's coming from and how it's getting paid and all those different options. If your students work on campus, they do have the option of applying a portion of their paycheck, either $20 or maybe 20% or all of it, depending on what your plan is. They can apply that back to their bill as well. And then as they get paid, they can go through that. And so there's lots of options. If you have sponsorship type arrangements or a third party that's going to help you, I would suggest you call our office. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time getting into the weeds of all those because they're so unique to every family. But if there's any VA benefits or MET or MESP or any other third party that might have some tuition assistance or things like that will be helping, give our office a call, send us an email, and we can certainly address those with you one-on-one. We will bill. So another important piece to understand is we do bill by term. So Alma College has 4 terms. And so we will bill 4 times a year. So fall, winter, spring, and summer. Students don't all, first year students may only do the fall and winter term. They do not have to do spring and summer. They do have to do 2 spring terms within their 4 years. So just something to be aware of. And so we will bill 4 times a year, but the students, another thing too, is always have the student be checking their account. Like I said, we're going to increase communication with that and let them know, as soon as we see things post. But if a student gets a parking ticket or there's some sort of library book fine or maybe some other miscellaneous thing that they've done, those charges are going to post directly to the bill. It's not related to their course registrations or anything like that, but other things could be hitting their account. So highly recommend the students get used to looking at it, get used to checking it, watch emails from our office, emails from financial services, emails from financial aid. Those are very important and should be paid attention to. If our offices are emailing out, it's generally information that we really need you to read and most likely respond to, because there's usually action in those emails. We also have a series of notifications that we can put in the students portal. And so as we get going through the billing term, or the fall term, excuse me, If the student's balance remains above $1,000 and it's time to register for winter term, they are not going to be able to. And so we will, towards the end of September, beginning of October, put what we call a financial hold on the account. What that does is it basically sends an alert into the student portal that says, hey, your account's on hold, contact our office. And it just something to grab their attention. We may need to talk about the account. The account may be perfectly fine. We just need a little bit of communication and go through that. So lots of ways that we communicate with the student, but we do most of our communication with the students. And we're looking at ways of including all of the proxies into that as well, so that you have information that you need. That was a lot, I know. I probably could keep going because there's so much to this. I'm happy to answer questions if there was something I didn't answer. I think I answered the one question that was sent in on the poll that was sent. But is there anything else that I missed or I need to cover?
I think that you covered everything. There was one question about scholarships, and Amanda posted a response into the chat. But if there are other questions, feel free to enter them. And again, I'm going to turn to our resident experts, our parents, current parents, and ask if there's anybody would like to share anything about kind of things that Cassie covered in terms of billing or using the portal and proxy access, that type of thing. Any information, Barry, Sue, Shirley, Michelle, you'd like to add or add on to or comment about?
It's just very easy for parents, very straightforward. Any needs that we have are easily handled. It's very smooth.
I would agree with what Michelle said. It really is. It is a little difficult when you talk about a parent that you've been in charge of this child for 18 years to count on them to give you the information you need, even though you're paying the bill. So that's something I think we all have to learn, and letting go of other things that you have to get their approval to do it, but it is an easy process. So
We've really made our daughter navigate it. Dad is there to guide if necessary, but she has been able to navigate it and get the help she needs when necessary. But it's just been a good learning experience for our teen, and it hasn't been super scary for her.
Good. I address all of what you just said. I appreciate that feedback a lot. I mean, I think our team works really hard to try to make things as smooth as we can. We certainly can understand the transition from the high school and, adolescent years and moving into that adulthood role in that piece of it. And so learning those pieces, it's definitely a life skill, something if they can get it now and understand that, it'll be all the better for them in the future. So I appreciate the feedback from all of you. That's great.
Well, thanks, Cassie. Again, if you have questions, certainly reach out to the financial services office, or if it's related to specifically to your financial aid package, to the financial aid office. The staff are more than willing to help clarify, answer any questions you have, provide additional information as needed. So just wanted, as we're moving closer to the end of our time, Katie, I think you're going to share some information about Tartan 101, which is our orientation and the dates for that and some other details. So you want to put that in there?
Yes. So all of this exciting stuff, they have to get here, right? So when does that happen and what do we have coming up? So first we have Becoming a Scott Day, and then we have Tartan 101. And sometimes people need the distinction of the two. So Becoming a Scott Day happens in July. So next week we'll kick off Becoming a Scott Day. We have the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 27th, and 28th. If you have not heard of Becoming a Scott Day, you'll probably want to touch base with your child. I'm sure they are registered. We have most of our students signed up. But Becoming a Scott Day will be an opportunity to just come and get to know campus a little bit better. We know that the last year was a little bit different, and so maybe accessibility wasn't as easy to come and see us. And so we want to open it up this summer to come look at a residence hall. Your child is placed in either Galveston or Brusky. So those are our first year housing or residence halls. And so we'll have a room available in each of the buildings. You'll be able to get a packing list, all the fun stuff, right? Kind of when you take care of the business side of things, then what are the fun things that you can look forward to? So Becoming a Scott Day will happen over the next couple of weeks. And then Tartan 101 is really that true orientation of, okay, I have moved in, I'm on campus. What is that adjustment like for me? What can I do when I'm not in the classroom or I'm not at practice, right? I'm not at band practice or I'm not at football practice. So they'll have different activities that will happen, whether there was a hypnotist when I was a student. I think it's been a long-standing activity. They'll have comedians, they'll have just different things to keep students occupied. And then beyond that, they'll also meet their first year guide, and they'll do a first year seminar class. Both of those things will happen over their first semester. So the first year guide's an upperclassman that will really guide them, not just physically around campus. I mean, they'll do that if the student needs help finding someplace, but really acts as a mentor as they transition and get used to maybe trying to navigate their portal, or if it's, hey, I'm trying to figure out, I don't really want to eat at the dining hall by myself. Could you go with me, right? Just different things like that. The first year guide can be a helpful resource. So Tartan 101 dates are August 26th through August 29th. So again, they'll already be moved in. They will be here. So those are just important dates to know of, that there will be really designated activities for them to take part in. And the schedule has not been released yet, so specific things aren't fully out there. I know that it is being worked on, but those are the dates for that. Move-in, I think most of you probably know, but move-in for all of our new students is Thursday, August 26th. If your child is a fall sport athlete, they'll get different communication from their coach. Or if they're in marching band, they'll get their own communication about their move-in date. We are keeping a process that we had done last year in lieu of COVID, which was what's called like drive-through registration for housing. And so they are going to keep that process. And so check-in will be done down at our Heritage Center. It'll be really easy, really streamlined. So regardless of if they're moving in early for a fall sport, or if they're moving in on that 26th, the process will remain the same. Email communication is going to start going out. So just encourage them to keep checking their email. The first communication about move-in is going to go out on, what's today? Tuesday. So on Thursday, on the 15th, they'll get their first email just about housing timeline. So move-in dates. And then in August 2nd, they'll get some information about what they can bring to their residence hall. And then on August 9th, they'll get a link to sign up for their specific move-in time. And we'll do signups on the half hour. So they'll get lots of communication about it, but exciting dates to mark down on the calendar and keep an eye on email. Let's see. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. I saw a question come in about Tartan 101 only for students. That is correct. Yes, it is for students only. Am I missing anything? I don't think that I am, but happy to take questions. Parking registration, yes, July 15th. We're getting communication put together. Some text communication will go out tomorrow to all students that have a housing assignment. So students cannot get a parking pass unless they have a housing assignment. Most of them do. But if your child goes to get a parking pass and they cannot, it would be because they are not housed. And in which case, contact either their admissions representative or Residence Life, and we'll be able to help you out. Let's see, lots of questions.
There was a question about what we're doing at Convocation, and that came into me. But yes, there is, and that's part of the move-in day. We usually have that is what we call Convocation, and that's a really special time. And I know, Sue, you and Barry have now been through that obviously 3 times. And it happens. And so some of that, I think that, again, as Katie said, the exact schedule for Tartan 101, including the convocation, hasn't been completely set yet. But I know our intent is to try to do that. Some of that's going to depend on the trajectory of the pandemic still, right? I mean, we can't forget, even though we've made a lot of progress, we are not out of a pandemic yet. But I know our goal would be to do that tradition if we can. So more details will be coming about that schedule and what that would look like. But if that does occur, it would likely be as a part of that move-in process. Other questions about either becoming a Scott Days, which start next week, or the Tartan 101, which is the orientation process that students go through once they're here on campus, or anything else related to move-in at this point. While we're waiting to see if there are any questions, again, our current parents, any comments from you all about your experience with kind of becoming a Scott Day or orientation or that move-in process that you might want to give as sort of lessons learned and some heads up about that process?
It was just that great. Yeah, nobody has. Yeah. One thing,
Maybe,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, wow, I'm so glad you're keeping the way you did it last year where we checked in at Heritage. That was so smooth and easy. It was nothing like the nightmares I remember of my college move-in days back when I rode my dinosaur to school. It was so smooth and so well done. It was, yeah, that to have that be the first real experience on campus was like, yeah, I can leave my kid here. And
Are coming and bringing your kids, then please make sure you stay for convocation. It is a really unique experience that I don't know if any other school does it. I know it didn't happen when I went to school. That really set the tone of family at Alma. And it's really, it's like the beginning of a bookend, and then they kind of repeat it at graduation where it makes it this whole experience from start to finish. So I know some of it's very difficult to say goodbye. I know you kind of want your kids to just learn and fly, but if you get an opportunity to stay for convocation, I strongly recommend you guys do.
Wonderful. Okay, I think that's all of our planned content, but we've got a few minutes left. So if you do have questions about anything we've covered, feel free to put a post in the chat area. Again, you're always welcome if it's more specific about your individual student and your unique circumstances. Please feel free to reach out to your admissions representative, or if it's about your financial aid, contact the financial aid office and have that one-on-one conversation. We certainly know there's a lot of unique details. Everyone's situation is unique, and we want to make sure you're getting that attention and immediate detailed response to your particular situation. The time scheduled for convocation, we don't have that set just yet, but some of that's going to be based on our move-in schedule. But usually it's in kind of early afternoon. So after lunch, we usually schedule it after lunch and people have had a chance to get moved in. And then convocation really marks that time where it's sort of, okay, we're transitioning now away from moving in to starting kind of orientation. And it's that segue of separation between drop off and you're here now. So it should be sometime kind of early to mid-afternoon on that move-in day.
Yep, and it does show in my notes that 8 to noon is what move-in is slated for. So Bill, I think that would line up just right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bill, can I add one clarification piece that I think might be, hopefully is helpful? So I'm from the financial services office, as I mentioned, but I also mentioned financial aid. And our two offices, we are together in the same space, but we do two different things related to the bill. And I know that's one area that typically gets confused is which office do I really need to talk to? Chances are the staff can help you no matter which office you call. But I thought I would just add a little clarifying context to those. So financial aid is giving you your award letter. They are the ones letting you know that you're eligible for scholarships, grants, loans, and those types of things. They will help you through the loan process for federal loans. You're accepting loans and doing those types of things with financial aid. That's exactly what they do. When it comes to our office, all of that stuff is done and it will post onto the bill and we're generating the bill. And so for us, it's the after effect. So it's what do we do with the bill after all of our financial aid's been applied, all of the loans and scholarships and things, but there's still this residual amount that maybe we need to cover. And so just if you're wondering whichever office to call, you can call both. But financial aid does the scholarships and loans. They give you that award letter. We are the collection piece of it. We're taking the money in. We're helping process and get payments from your MET or MESP or VA benefits or things like that. It's the cash coming in or payments coming in to help cover the bill after all of your financial aid is posted. So I know that's one common thing that ends up happening, or parents will call one office to the other and they end up getting transferred. No worries, we'll certainly do that. Like I said, we're all here in the same space, but just wanted to add a little clarifying context to those two offices because I know we get confused quite often.
Sure. Thanks, Cassie. Well, again, thank you all for joining us. For this was the third and final in our series of our what to expect the parenting of a new student series. And so thanks to Cassie and Phil and Amanda, Katie for providing all that information. And of course, thanks to Barry and Sue, Shirley and Michelle for offering kind of additional perspective based on your own experience. We are certainly looking forward to welcoming you and your students to campus this fall. It is one of the highlights of our year to kick off the school year. It's one of the greatest days in our academic year. So looking forward to having you here. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any individual questions, but that is all we have for this evening, and we look forward to seeing you soon.